So in my office, I often get an interesting question. And the question always centers around, did I fail? I can't tell you the number of times that I've had someone sitting in the office, in the exam room, and they may have just been diagnosed with diabetes. They may have been diabetic for years. But we're facing that question. The question that all diabetics at some point grapple with, whether it's at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, this idea that they failed, that for some reason they either may not be able to maintain what they're doing if they're doing well, or currently they don't have such good numbers, and what does that mean going forward? And in our last foundation episode, we talked about that word, that name, that thing that's on the back of their mind, and that is insulin. And we said that insulin is not failure. We said that blood sugar is not a problem, but blood sugar is a reflection of the problem. And the gap is the difference between what we're asking the body to do and what the body is capable of doing. And so we want to ask the question, when is insulin appropriate? And tonight we move from understanding to decision. Because there comes a moment in medicine when the question is no longer, what does insulin mean? The question becomes, when does the gap between what we're asking the body to do and what the body is able to do become so wide that the capacity must be added directly? This is the moment we're stepping into tonight, in tonight's case conference. And tonight we're going to walk through that exact decision in real time. When does the gap require insulin? Hey, I'm Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E if you're new to me. I welcome you. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications, go to the next level. We are creating the life we've always wanted. I'm here because I want you to have the success in your health like you are having in all the other areas of your life. So you can show up for those people, for those events that are so important to you. You don't need superhuman strength. What you need is a strategy you can trust, a plan you can follow, and the determination and the support to keep showing up every single time. If you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments because I want to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And let you know that I am so excited that you are here. Whatever platform you're joining us from, whether that's LinkedIn or Twitch, or you are on Facebook, or of course here on YouTube, thank you for coming through. And whatever city, state, town, country you're in, welcome to our show tonight. And a special shout out to our accelerator members who are out there. Thank you for being here, for being in this space. And two groups of people that I do want to give a special shout out for are those of you who are from Atlanta. You are from the Berean Church there in Atlanta, Georgia. And for those who are in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Magazine Street Church, thank you for being here. And wherever you've heard us, wherever you've seen us, wherever you've seen our content, if you are here, thank you for coming through and let us know. Go ahead and drop in the comments where you're joining us from and how did you hear about us. I'd love to hear that. So you know how we do. We're going to look at a couple of things. First, we're going to look at my blood sugar because as we are moving into the case conference, we want to ground some of what we do in, well, not some of it, we want to ground it in real world activities. So let's go ahead and let's hop over now. And this is what you're looking at right now. This is my Dexcom. This is my G7, and you'll see it right there. My blood sugar right now is right about there, 107. So my blood sugar is 107, and down below, you'll see what my blood sugar has been running over the course of today. Now, this is a monitor that I just actually put on this afternoon around 5 p.m. And so that's what you see there. If I go back 24 hours, so I didn't have one on yesterday, and so 12 hours is where we are right now. Okay, we'll come back and look at another report here in just a minute, but let's hop over and let's take a look at what my Libre is saying. And right now you'll see my Libre says that my blood sugar is an 89, And you'll see down below, this is what my graph is running right now over the last 12 hours. If I take my finger and kind of scroll through there, you'll get an idea of what the numbers have been. Right, so early this morning, about 12 hours ago, actually that was, about 7 o'clock this morning. And you'll see there, 125, came down as I went into the middle part of the day. And then I ate lunch, and that went up to 146. Yeah, 146. And then steadily climbing back down, to where we are right now at 89, okay? And then if I look at my reports, I love looking at these. So here's my time in range. And for 90 days, you'll see that I'm in range for 95% of the time. You'll see 4% down there that are low. Those happen when I'm fasting. And then getting out of this, well, let me go back here. Actually, I want to stay here. Getting out of this and then going into my average blood sugar for 90 days, you'll see right there, average blood sugar for 90 days, 101. I love this part of the graph or part of the display because it allows me to look to see what my blood sugars have been during different times of the day. And I love that because it allows me to make decisions, right? Because remember, I love data. It allows me to make some decisions about what I'm going to do at different parts of the day so that I can continue to do what I need to do to be healthy. All right, and then we're going to leave this on the screen. Actually, I'm going to change the view for a minute. Oh, let me do this. Let's go back here. We're going to look at my GMI. So my GMI is my glucose management indicator, and it is a surrogate, if you will, for what my A1C would be. And right now it's saying that it's 5.7. So I would anticipate that when I got my A1C, it should be close to that. I can't call it an A1C because it's a calculated number, but it gives me a good indication of what I should expect. Getting out of this one and going back to the Dexcom, I can look at similar information, and they actually give it on a full screen. And so you'll see here for 90 days, I'm in target 95% of the time. My average blood sugar here is 122, and my GMI is 6.2. So there's a little discrepancy between the Dexcom and the Libre, and as you know, if you've been following, that is something that's to be expected. Now, I got my blood work, by the way, done 2 weeks ago. So I have those in hand, and so keep an eye out. We'll be doing one of the shows. I'm going to actually interject that into one of our Mondays, and we will go through my actual blood work that I just received over the last several weeks. So keep an eye and an ear out for that show. Okay. In the meantime, now though, let's go ahead and we're going to hop over, and I want to take a look at what's going on with my monitor. So here is my Keto Mojo, and here is my Contour, and let me come here. And let's see. So here we are. So I've got a blue for ketones, and then I need a brown one for blood sugar. And then, of course, I need some lancets. And I do have some strips tonight. So we're going to take a look at that and see what those are. Okay? So I think I took 2 out. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and get this one in here. Actually, I'm going to just stick it in there and go ahead and open this so that these are ready for us. All right, so here is the Keto Mojo. And as you know, the Keto Mojo gives me both blood sugar and it gives me ketones. And for the ketones, I'm just going to open this one and have it available because otherwise I may have to stick myself again, and I don't want to do that. So we'll have that off to the side. All right, so here we are. So we're ready to go. And for me, I don't use a lancing device. I just use a lancet. So I just basically open that up and find a finger and ow, 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 ow. All right, so that should give me a good drop right there. And so this is my Keto Mojo. Wasn't sure if I got a good enough drop, but looks like I did. All right, so Keto Mojo is saying 99. The contour is saying that I am 104. And going back over here, I get all of these on the screen. So here is my Dexcom saying 111 and then 92 for what my Libre is. So notice that we have 4 different numbers, right? So we've got 92 for the Libre. We've got 99 for the Keto Mojo. We've got 104 for the Contour. And then on the screen there, you'll see 111 for the Dexcom. All right, so now, of course, now we've been talking. So let me hurry up and see if I can get ketone, or do I have to stick myself again? And hopefully, there we go. So I got a good drop. All right, so what do you think the ketones are going to be? I have not been fasting since we ended our fast last week. Okay, so what do you think that's going to be? Drop what you think it is in the comments. And so 0.1 is what my ketones are right now. As you know, ketones, less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So right now I'm in the normal range, which is I love that. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and we're going to hop into our discussion as we move into our case conference. So let's go ahead and let's do that right now. So as we talk about medication, and really all of the conversations that we've been having is kind of an on-ramp, if you will, an on-ramp for those people who are currently entering the metabolic space, or you've been in this space for a while, or you are around people who are in the metabolic space. And specifically now we're talking about diabetes. But remember, as we discuss diabetes, the things that we're talking about are also the same things that we are discussing in order to give everyone along the metabolic spectrum information about what's going on in your body. Because diabetes is actually the ultimate manifestation. It's a prototypic metabolic disease. But there are so many diseases on that spectrum that also have the same underlying issue. And that is dysfunctional metabolism. At the base of dysfunctional metabolism is hyperinsulinemia, or too much insulin. So if you've watched the foundation episode, we said that insulin is not failure. We said insulin is not failure. We said that the number is not the problem. The number actually is just the reflection of the underlying issue. So people see elevated blood sugars and they think that that's the issue. So often when people come to the office, I have to go through the process of saying, you know what, that blood sugar that you're seeing that's high, that's actually not the issue. It is not a blood sugar problem. The blood sugar is simply a manifestation. It is the indication that there's something else going on underlying what's happening now. So the gap is the problem. The gap, and that's the difference between what we're asking the body to do and the capacity that the body has to do that. And so as we are in the case conference now, we are moving from the understanding, we're moving to the decision. That's what we're talking about tonight. And so as we talk about the gap, when does the gap require insulin? That is, how much is there a difference between what we're being asked to do and the body's capability? And so as we go through that, I want to introduce you to a very important person. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit, okay? This is our concept of the gap and capacity. So the body has an ability to do something. It's kind of like if you had a grand piano in your living room and you wanted to move it from the living room and you wanted to put it in some other parts of the house. So you want to move it from the living room. You're going to decorate the dining room, and as part of the dining room, as you come into your house, you want to put it there and maybe in the foyer so that some you can play there, however you want to decorate it. But it's in the living room right now. And we want to move it. And so the piano has a certain weight. And the people that are coming to move it, you and maybe a couple of friends, have a certain ability to move the piano. So the capacity is what you are able to lift. So you got one person here who can lift 200 pounds. You got another person over there who can lift 50 pounds. You got another person over there who can lift 150 pounds. Whatever it is, and you guys have a certain ability to lift the piano. That is the capacity. The weight of the piano, how much you're being asked to lift, is the demand. Right? So piano weighs, I don't know how much a grand piano weighs, but it weighs a lot. I couldn't move it by myself. As a matter of fact, me and somebody else couldn't lift it and move it. We can roll it, certainly, but we couldn't lift it. The difference between the weight of the piano and what collectively we can lift is called the gap. You got that so far? The weight of the piano is the demand. The capacity is how much we can lift. And the difference between what we can do and what we're being asked to do is what's called the gap. So that the body has the ability to manage a certain level of blood sugar. That's the capacity. The amount of blood sugar that we are asking it to manage when we eat, when we are stressed, when we don't sleep, when we don't exercise, whatever that is the demand. And if there's a difference between those, that's what's called the gap. Everybody got that so far? So we're going to keep that concept. I want to keep that concept in your mind. So let's go ahead, and as we walk into, I want you to meet someone. And this is Denise. Denise is going to be our patient as we walk through the case conference. Denise is she's a middle school principal, and she is 58 years old. She has type 2 diabetes. She was diagnosed when she was 49, and so she's now had diabetes for 9 years. Her mother and her aunt both have type 2 diabetes. So once again, she was diagnosed at 49. She changed her diet. She started walking. They started her on metformin, and she showed up every time there was an appointment. She was there. In fact, she was opening up the door. For a while, it worked. The A1C started coming down, and the A1C was 7.2. So it moved from wherever it was, right? 9.4, 9.3. And she was proud of that. Like many of you, you have a diagnosis, something happened, whatever the treatment was, and the numbers started to move. And then life took over. Life started happening. School, she had some issues. She went through a budget cut. They had staff turnovers. There was some board conflicts, some interpersonal relationships. The pressure increased, her sleep decreased, she stopped walking, right? So all the things that she had put in place that she started doing during the course of her diagnosis, when she was first diagnosed, those are kind of falling by the way. Not because Denise doesn't want to do that, and that's an important point. It's not that Denise doesn't care about her diabetes, but just life is happening. And you put your hand up, right? Because life happens. And when it happens, there are certain things that we are aware of that get pushed on the back burner. And it's not that we don't care. So then her A1C started climbing. So we went to 8.4, and they added a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Remember, we talked about those. She tolerated it well. She lost some weight. She felt better. And that happened for a few months. And as she's coming now, as we're encountering Denise, her A1C is a 9.6. So once again, so this is not because Denise stopped caring, but Denise has a gap that has widened. All right, so you guys get the idea there? So her blood sugars were improving, so the gap was closing, and then some stuff began happening that opened up the gap again. And so the difference between what she's asking the body to do and what the body's able to do is what we call the gap. And that really is a typical story. For you, if you have been diabetic for a while, and I'm gonna put my hand up, right? So back, I don't know now, maybe a year and a half ago, right? So I got my A1Cs down, and you may have remembered because we actually saw it here on the show. And so for about 3 or 4 months, my blood sugars were much, much higher than what they should have been. And so we kind of watched that, and that affected the A1C. Not that I didn't care, but life was going on. Okay? So let's take go back and take a look at Denise. And so as we're looking at her further, we're gonna get some more information. So once again, her A1C is 9.6, so it's gone up from what it was. Her fasting blood sugars are right now running between 190 to 220. Her BMI, or her weight, is elevated. Remember, normal BMI, according to the books, is 25 or lower. Her GFR, a function of her kidney filtration, is 71. She sleeps 4 to 5 hours. Her post-meal blood sugars are greater than 260. So that's pretty high. Her blood pressure, 138/86. Now, we're not going to go through some of those issues right now because we're concentrating on her diabetes. Her microalbumin is 58. And remember, microalbumin is the kidneys are kind of like a sieve, a strainer, right? And they have holes in them, obviously. And so diabetes causes those holes to get bigger, and things that should not pass through will go through. And that's what we're measuring when we're talking about microalbumin. So when your doctor is talking to you about that, that's one of the things that they're looking at. And then her stress level, Denise says that her stress level is constant. Like, man, it's there. It's always there. Well, Denise is an interesting patient. And if we're not careful, we can pigeonhole Denise as a non-compliant, or the new phrase is non-adherent patient. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what's actually going on. So we're going to map now the gap or the demand that Denise has on her. What is the demand that's going on? Basically, how heavy is the piano is what we're looking at right now, okay? So how heavy is the piano? So when we look at the demand, so here are some sources of demand. Number one, food intake. All right, so what is Denise eating as she's going through her days? And so even though, so she's eating thoughtfully, it's raising her blood sugar. Every meal is a demand. So even though she's eating thoughtfully, whenever she eats something, that is a weight that the body has to deal with, okay? There's a demand that comes from the liver. And remember, the liver's job is to provide energy. And the liver responds not necessarily just to food, but the liver responds to sleep. It responds to stress, right? So all those are non-tangible things that we talk about sometimes. And so what do we say about Denise? We said that her stress level is up. She's not sleeping well, right? So we went through all of that. And then down below, you see cortisol and stress, which directly ties into what happens in the liver. And then, of course, Denise is not getting good sleep. So all of those put together are what's pointing to the demand. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to map Denise's capacity. So basically, how much can her body lift? Now, on the left side, you'll see we're going through according to years that Denise has been diagnosed, and she's been diagnosed about 9 years. And on the right side, right? There are two things, and I want to make a comment about that. So on the right side, you'll see numbers that are simulating the process of Denise's pancreas making less and less insulin. Okay, and I want to pause here for a minute because I do want to make a comment. There are lots of things that can happen in the body, and diabetes is currently defined as a chronic progressive disease. Okay, chronic progressive if it's untreated. Chronic progressive if we are not doing the things we need to do to heal the body. And I think that's what we forget to say to people. It is chronic progressive if you continue doing the things, if you continue, right? So, but if we're working on repairing the body, the chronic progressive nature of diabetes does not have to go where we've been told it goes. But as we go through Denise now, we're simulating, right, the current concept of chronic progressive disease. And so you'll see there on the right side, you'll see ideas, percentages of numbers on what's going on in the body in Denise's pancreas as it's making less and less and less insulin. Okay? All right. So Denise is diagnosed, and we know from studies that by the time a person is diagnosed with diabetes, their pancreatic function has actually decreased by about 50%. Yeah. So in order for diabetes to show up, the body has been for a long time making up the difference in the gap. Let's go back to our piano example. Okay. So you want to move the piano. And you're in there with two other people. And you guys are lifting. And you're like, man, this is not moving, right? There's three of us and it's not moving. And it's kind of like one of your friends, right? So you're on this side of the piano, so you can't see on the other side. But one of your friends asks some other people to come. And while you're lifting on this side, you think that it's only two people on the other side, but it's actually 5 or 6 people on that side, and they're lifting. And all of a sudden, the piano gets lifted and you get to move it. And in your mind, the 3 of you did it. But it's not the 3 of you, it's actually that the body or your friends got some other people to do it. So for years and years and years, the body has been getting some extra help. It's been producing more and 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 more. So by the time someone is diagnosed with diabetes, that gap has been growing and growing and growing and growing. And now it's grown to the point where the body can no longer manage it. And so your friends who were helping with the piano, they called their friends, and their friends called their friends, and their friends called their friends. And after a while, they didn't have any other friends to call. But the piano still couldn't get lifted, and so now we realize that there's an issue, okay? So that's the diagnosis. By the time a person is diagnosed, then they've had diabetes, they have been chronically hyperinsulinemic for a while. So that's year 0. So year 1 to 4, right, we got this compensation that's going on. So metformin comes on board, maybe you get started on it, and the metformin is there, and the blood sugars get better. You did a few things, you watched your diet, you went home and you threw all the stuff away because you said, by God, I'm never eating another chocolate cake. I'm never going to touch any more pasta. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to run every single day, right? Hands up, hands up. And then after a while, yeah, you went to the gym one last day. Yeah, you did eat most pasta and you didn't give up the bread. And this is not to say that you went back and you're like sitting at the table and you're just gobbling. This is just normal life. And that's the key here. Normal life. You're going through normal life. You're not going down to the bakery and just sitting in there shoveling down ice cream and cake and cookies and candy. That's not what you're doing. You're actually looking at doing a relatively good job in your diet. And so the body adjusts. And so the extreme that we went to, right? And that's we can't keep up the extreme, right? Hint, 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 right? Motivation fades, but structure lasts. You guys have probably heard that before somewhere. Okay? So 1 year, 1 to 5, 1 to 4. And then year 5, your sleep worsens, right? Something happens at the job. You have some issues in the family. You're working 2 jobs. You guys are going through some family issues. And so sleep is suffering. And as that happens, the demand goes up. So blood sugars are getting higher because now the liver, due to stress, has come on board. And the liver is producing more. And so each time something happens, the beta cells are going down, but the body is being asked to do a little bit more. And the gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And over time, the body is managing it. But at some point, it meets a threshold. And when that threshold is met, blood sugars climb. Right? So you guys get the progression. Now, I want to say something, and I'm going to come back to those numbers on the side, the beta cell function that we talked about. Even if your beta cells never fail, like the beta cells don't decrease, right? Let's assume that they stay at 50%, whatever the number is when you were first diagnosed. And you went back and you did all the things we just talked about. You cleaned out the house, you looked at your food, you exercised, you're getting good sleep, you're drinking water, right? All the things you go through. Remember, what has happened to cause the blood sugar to go up in the first place is that the capacity was already compromised. That's why the blood sugar is high. And I want this point to sink in. The reason the blood sugar was elevated when you were first diagnosed was that the capacity could not meet the demand, and there was already a gap. So there's already some dysfunction. And so we did some things, metformin. Let's go through this, right? So we did metformin, the gap got narrower. We started exercising, the gap got narrower. We started drinking water, the gap got narrower. We started sleeping, the gap got narrower. Right? We started managing our stress, and the gap disappeared. Got that? Okay? I'm getting a little tired, so I don't know if I can keep going to the gym like I used to. Man, I've got this new job, and I can't get as much sleep as I need. And man, this relationship really is stressing me out. What's happening? The gap is increasing again. Not because the underlying issue is getting worse necessarily, but we're again asking more than the body is able to do. And it was already compromised. I want that point to really kind of resonate with you. All right? So let's go ahead and we're going to get back to Denise. And so the gap for Denise, right? So what is the gap for Denise? Denise's gap, we went through that. Denise's gap, the demand and the gap. And so her demand is the food, the liver output, the cortisol, the sleep, the circadian rhythm demand, all of that caused an elevation. And the gap becomes too wide for what Denise is currently doing. So the current tools, what do we have? See that on the side there. She has metformin on board. We said that they started her on a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Right? So what is missing? Neither of those tools are able to change the capacity of the body. Neither of those tools can make the body do more. Well, the GLP-1 can actually force the body to make more insulin. That is true. Okay? But the body's ability to make insulin was already compromised. Does that make sense? And so this is where Denise finds herself right now, that her gap is opened because of this demand going up, and the tools that she has on board can't do for her what we need her to do. And so the insulin decision comes in light of this. And so the questions that we want to ask, we go back there. Is the gap persistent? What does that mean? That means that we have persistently elevated blood sugars. Because the blood sugars will sometimes be of such that they will fluctuate and they come back to normal, right? So that's a normal process. That's a normal process. And so we're not looking to say, okay, well, today was high and then the rest of the time is good, right? We're looking for, hey, today was high, tomorrow is high, it's high the day after that, it's high in the morning, it's high in the evening, next week it's still high. We're looking for persistently elevated blood sugars, which are an indication of a widening gap or wide gap. So is the gap persistent? And for Denise, we said the answer is yes, because her A1C is 9.6. Can the demand be reduced further? Right? So can Denise eat less? Can Denise exercise? Can Denise get good sleep? Can Denise manage her stress? Right? So all the things that we talk about, can that happen? And the answer to that is yes, but it's limited. I want you to think about yourself. How quickly can you get out of the situation that you're in? We'll come back because I want to spend a moment here. The conversation that we have often in the office, in the exam room, is this very conversation. And the question is not, do we need to change life? The answer is yes. Do we need to eat better? Yes. Do we need to exercise? Yes. Do we need to drink more water? Yes. Do we need to learn how to manage our stress? Yes. Do we need to get more sleep? Yes. The answer to all of those is yes. My question is, when is it going to happen? Like, are you tomorrow going to go home and get more sleep? Are you getting out of that relationship tomorrow? Are you changing the job tomorrow? And for most of us, that's not something we go home and then boom, it's done. It takes time. Even if I decide that I'm changing jobs, it's going to take me a while to find a different job. And I'm not leaving this job until I get another one. The relationship has been problematic. And I'm working on the relationship. It's not getting fixed tomorrow. I'm going to exercise. How many times have you said that? And when is the exercise going to happen? Not tomorrow. Right? So can we decrease the demand? Yes, we can. When is it going to happen? That's the question. And I want to take a moment. I want to talk specifically to those of us who have had A1Cs that have been high consistently, persistently. Elevated A1Cs indicate elevated blood sugars. Elevated blood sugars indicate a big gap, a gap that is not consistent with where we want your blood sugar to be. Make sense? Okay. And so when someone shows up with an elevated blood sugar, elevated A1C, and they say, Doc, my A1C was 12 and now it's 10. 3 months later, right? So they've gotten some improvement. And they say, and we're shooting for 6.5, by the way, in our office, right? So below 7 is the target. Below 7. Let's put that in. This is below 7. So we're shooting for below 7, and it went from a 12. Now it's 10. 3 months ago, and 3 months from now they come back and it's an 8, improved. And 3 months later, they come back and it's a 7. How long has it taken? So that's now 9 months. 9 months of elevated blood sugars, 9 months of damage, 9 months of persistent, consistent damage. And so we say, hey, give me another visit. And another visit is probably another 3 months. So we're talking about an entire year of blood sugars that are consistently doing damage. Are you willing to wait? Are you willing to allow the damage to continually be done? Now, I've had patients who have, by the way, have surprised me, who have come in and they did exactly what I just described. They went home and it's almost like tomorrow everything stopped. And they come back and they got an A1C down in the 6s. And I want you to raise your hand if that's you. If that's the case, and notice, that can be done. That's my point in telling that story. It can be done. But for most of us, y'all, for most of us, the things that go on in our lives, it doesn't allow us to be that regimented. And so we end up with blood sugars and A1Cs that are elevated for a long time. And that's where the damage is being done. Okay, so is the gap persistent? And the answer we answer is yes. Can we decrease the demand further? And possibly, but it's limited. Can capacity be increased without directly adding insulin? Can we get the body to do more? Can we get that piano lifted without getting more people? And the answer to that question is no. And that is what makes the difference. That's what makes the decision. Because if we don't do that, if we don't increase capacity, then we continue the damage. So we're no longer talking about just blood sugar. We're talking about blood sugar over time. We're not just talking about the blood sugar being elevated right now. We're talking about the blood sugar being elevated over time. So what is insulin really? When people hear the word insulin, they think failure. They think things are getting worse. They think last resort. They think I let it get here, right? So there's this almost punishment mentality. They think I've lost control. And they think, oh man, this is a verdict. This is an indictment on myself. This is an indictment on me. And I want to pause before we get over to the other side, okay? Because remember, as we were going through Denise's description when we first started, I said, Denise, this didn't happen because Denise didn't care. This didn't happen because Denise woke up one morning and said, you know what, whatever happens is going to happen. Like diabetes is going to be diabetes. That's not what happened. Denise she's coming to her visits. She's taking the medication. But Denise is living a normal life. Denise is living your life. She's living my life. She's going about her activities. She is managing. She's going to work, right? She's dealing with stuff at the house, at the job. She's dealing with stuff at the house. She's getting as much sleep as she can when she can. She's managing stress as well as she could. She walks when she can. She eats well when she's able to stay home and makes it right. So all the things that you do in your life, Denise is doing. And I want this to be a thought process. This is not for someone who is like off the rails, who doesn't care. This is for you and for me. Reasonable people, sensible people who are doing everything we can within a life that requires more than we're able to give. Right? The run-of-the-mill person. So when we hear insulin, right, we think about the stuff that you saw there, failure and verdict and so forth. But what insulin actually is insulin is a way of giving the body the capacity that it needs. Insulin is a way of getting some extra people to come help you move the piano. It's a capacity augmenting tool. It is a tool. It's a response to the gap, not a response to you as a person. It's not a slap on the wrist. It's closing the gap that the body can't handle. We're not treating the number, we're treating the gap. We're treating the difference between the two. And here's the beauty of this. Whenever that difference gets back down, guess what goes away? The tool. I love it. So remember, the reason that the gap happened is that the gap got to a threshold that the body can no longer tolerate or no longer help with. So the body needs 50 and you only have 49. You go to the grocery store. They ask you for, $50 for something. You only have 49. Guess what has to happen? You need to either find somebody to give you extra dollar or you put some back. Okay? So biology is happening in this case. The stress is raising cortisol. Cortisol is making the body produce sugar through the liver. Denise did not go to the gym as she used to or walk as she used to because she's tired. And so her muscles aren't pulling up sugar. Denise is not sleeping as much, which causes stress, which causes cortisol, which causes the liver, right? So that whole cycle. And so insulin is a tool and not a verdict. It is a tool to do something. It is not a verdict. Now, the other thing I want to talk about a little bit is this idea of what's called the dynamic gap. When we talk about the gap, that difference, there are some times when the gap is actually narrowed. When everything is working well, you're sleeping, you didn't go to work today, so you didn't get the stress, you drank water, you didn't eat a lot of highly processed sugary foods, and when you look at your blood sugar, the blood sugar is actually pretty normal. And there are times when the gap fluctuates. So it is not a static thing. Just because your blood sugar is good now doesn't mean it's going to be good tomorrow. It depends on the things that are going on. So you ate a sandwich this morning when you were at the house. You didn't go to work today, and blood sugars are great. You take that same sandwich, take it to work in the middle of all your stress, and you eat it, and guess what happens? The blood sugar spikes up. You didn't do something wrong in your eating, but the situation is different. And so the gap fluctuates depending on the situation, depending on the sleep, depending on the management of stress, depending on... So all those things will feed into the gap. So the gap is not static. And so how do we align insulin then with the gap? Right? How do we go about doing that? It is that we have to look at what is causing it, and we have to treat that. What does that mean? That means that we can go home and we can manage stress, right? Let's pick on stress for a minute. There's something going on at home. There's a relationship issue. There's a parenting issue. There is a caretaker issue. There's a financial issue. And going home and managing those, great. Guess what? That demand goes down. However, how easy is it if you're a caretaker, raise your hand, right? If you're a caretaker and you're taking care of someone, how easy is it to get rid of that stress? Because you are pouring your heart into the person that you're taking care of. And so to say, go home and don't do that, who does that? You can't do that. Right? Because you're taking care of mama or daddy. You're taking care of a special needs child. You're taking care of a parent. You may be taking care of someone who's not even related to you by blood. But your heart is going out to that person. And that causes stress. And so what do you do for the sugar that comes from that? Now, a cookie, you can decide, well, I'm not going to eat the cookie, right? So that sugar's gone, right? So that's not a sugar that you have to deal with. But how do you deal with the sugar that comes from the caretaking? Or you go to work, you're a manager, and you're dealing with people. You're in HR. You're a supervisor. Your team is having interpersonal relationships. They come to you. Your boss is on you to get the team going. Or you're on the team and your boss is trying to get you going. And there's that pressure, there's that stress. How do you deal with the sugar that comes from that? You were laid off. You're furloughed. You're part of the government and it shut down. Your job, downsize, right size, upside, whatever the size is, but financially there's an issue. How do you deal with the sugar that comes from that? So it's not as easy as we sometimes think. And there is no personal failure because my sugar went up, because I'm caretaking, because I have financial issues, because of the job. Now, do I need to learn how to deal with stress? Yeah. Come on, teach me. Teach me how to deal with stress. Teach me how to manage stress. Teach me how to do all the stuff, the breathing and right? So all the stuff we go through, teach me how to do it. But in the meantime, what do I do with the blood sugar? That's where insulin comes in. It is the ability that it gives the body to manage the gap. The difference between what the body has the capacity to do and what is being asked to do. When we are able to get the gap narrowed, there's no reason for insulin. In fact, there's no reason for medication. And that's usually my push to my patient. I say, hey, if you can get that gap closed, guess what? Medication goes away. But until then, we can't keep letting the house stay on fire. We have to do something to put the fire out. It's kind of like being at the side of the road. There was a car accident. And you're at the side of the road. And if I walk up and you're injured, you're in pain, and I say to you, hey, you know what? That broken bone, that broken leg, that broken arm, It's going to get better after a while. We could wait. We can wait. Is it going to heal? Yes, it will. Are you willing to wait for it to heal? Most of us would say no. Like, fix it right now. Whatever you got to do, let's fix it. And the idea here is not that the person who shows up on the side of the road is so desperate to put you on medication. It is that you are in danger. You are injured. You need assistance. And when the body can't do it, when the capacity is unable to change, when the load, the demand has limited flexibility, and the gap is there, we have to close the gap. And that's the function of insulin. It gives additional capacity. It goes and gets some friends and helps you to move that piano out of the living room so it shows up where you want it to be. And that's the beauty of what we do. So let's talk a little bit about what Denise's case is telling us. Let's take a look at that. Well, let me do one thing before I do that, right? I want to talk a little bit about what to expect. What to expect when we talk about insulin. And I want you to imagine Denise, right? So Denise was started on some insulin. We're not going to go through all the. We'll come back and we're actually going to do a show where we go through the types of insulin she's on and so forth. So the first 2 weeks, she's starting on some medication. She's checking her blood sugar daily. We increase the dose by 2 units every 3 days. We're not going to, don't spend time thinking about that, but we're just titrating. Basically, we're trying to find the best dose for where she is. Her fasting numbers should begin coming down within the next, 2 to 3 weeks. That's the first signal, because we've made some changes. Now we start to see the fasting numbers go down, right? The first real report card, we expect her A1C to come down. It is going to come down. We expect that to happen. And as we get further and further on, now we're building a system. And the beauty of this, and this is what should happen as you are in the process of getting on medication. As you're getting on medication, all that other stuff we just talked about should be worked on in the background. Now teach me, as I'm getting the blood sugars down, as I'm putting the fire out on the house, right? Teach me how to manage the stress. Teach me what to do with mama. Teach me how to handle daddy who is having memory issues. Help me find a better job. Help me learn skills to deal with the people at the job, at work. Because the numbers are going to get better. We're stopping the damage. But if we're not learning those other things in the background, guess what happens? We end up again in the same position where the gap is still there. And the medication is just managing it. Because we've not learned the things that are needed to decrease the demand. Right? So what does Denise's story tell us? Some things that we want to learn. Number one, blood sugar is not the problem. Blood sugar is the symptom. It is the result of the underlying issue. 2, insulin is a capacity tool. So insulin adds the ability to close the gap. Remember, we have a demand, we have a capacity, and if those two don't match, then we've got the gap. So insulin increases capacity. It increases the ability to handle what the demand is, whatever we're asking. The gap can be dynamic. So one day it's here, one day it's there. Your blood sugars are good one day. You eat the same thing tomorrow, and it's different because you didn't sleep well the night before. So it's dynamic. When you're on insulin, that doesn't mean that you failed. And then insulin buys time as we rebuild. Insulin stops the damage. It gives us the ability to learn in the background without doing the damage. Can you imagine what happens if all of a sudden you decide and you figure out how to manage the stress? You get a new job, so now you have more money. You've dealt with mama and daddy. You are now the supervisor and your team is running perfectly well. Things are going great. And then you find out that you've got kidney damage or damage to your eyes or you have a heart attack. So the time now is an issue. Can it be done? Sure. Some of you cannot be on medication, and in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, your blood sugars are great. What's going on in the year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years while the blood sugars are elevated? And are you willing to wait? I'm not. Okay? So insulin is not a verdict. It's a tool that helps the body to restore alignment when capacity can no longer meet the demand. Blood sugar is not the problem. The gap is the problem. And insulin is one of the ways that we close that gap. One of the ways that we close that gap. When you are looking at your blood sugars, when you're looking at where you are, we have to figure out, how do we close the gap? That's the goal. Because when the gap closes, medications go out the window. There's no need for medication at that point. So that's where we're always heading. That's what the goal should be. As you're talking to your healthcare providers, as you are thinking about what you do in your life, that's the goal. No gap, no medication. This puts insulin in a different light. It takes away the shame. It takes away the doubt. You're no longer deficient because you have insulin. Insulin is simply a tool that we use that allows us time to do the other things that we need to do so that we can be healthy. To get the different job, to learn the stress management, to deal with the family issues, to get better finances. Until we do that, though, we want to make sure that we are not causing damage. Because if we don't do that, things are happening. And we wake up one day and we find out that those things that were happening on the bottom are now becoming an issue on the top. So last week we changed the meaning of insulin. And in this case, we changed the way we make the decision. The gap, the dynamic gap, capacity and demand. This is how we think clinically. And this is how we decide when we need insulin in our lives as we treat our diabetes. Stay by. We'll be right back. All right, y'all. So this is. Am I going to say it? You guys know what I'm going to say? Yeah, I'm going to say it. This is one of my favorite conversations. Now, it's one of my favorite conversations, not because of the insulin story, right? Not because we're putting people on medication. It's one of my favorite conversations because it helps people to understand where insulin fits. And when you understand where insulin fits, it opens your mind to the possibility that you can make a difference in your diabetes. You know, all the shows that we've been doing the last several weeks have been in my mind kind of an on-ramp for those people who are newly diagnosed so that you can get an idea of the process, why we do what we do, how do we make those decisions. It's also for the person who's been diabetic for a while, who doesn't understand why you went through the things you went through in terms of decisions that were made about blood sugar and medication and insulin. And it's also for the person who is the caretaker or associated with people who are diabetic, so that they now can understand what needs to happen in the lives of their friends and family members. And it's also for all those people who are along the metabolic spectrum. Because just like the blood sugar changes, we talked about the dynamic gap, the blood sugar is also changing in people who are not diabetic. And the body is compensating. It's managing. It's keeping the blood sugars normal. But the point for our metabolic folks is this: a normal blood sugar does not mean normal metabolism. Just because the blood sugar shows up on the lab and it's normal, the A1C shows up the lab and it's normal, doesn't mean there's not an underlying issue. So the same things that we tell our diabetics to do are the same things that fundamentally we all should be doing to prevent ourselves from progressing into diabetes. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. We're not just fixing it when it's broken. Our goal is also to prevent the progression to the point when it breaks. I see some of our community members out there, so let me go ahead and say hello to you. So I see Teresa. Hey, Teresa. Teresa, you were first one. She said, hey, doctor, and hey, everyone. Cornelia's there. She says, hey, doctor, and an LLG. And then I see Jennifer. She said, howdy all, just passing through. Have a great evening. Hey, Jennifer, thank you for coming through. And then I see Steve. Steve is say, hello, ladies. Hey, thank you for coming through, Steve. And thank you for coming through, everyone. So we are in another week, y'all. As we move through this week, we'll be having our fasting coming up tomorrow. But as I say, everything that we do here is based on the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcasts. We empower with the tools that we're learning, right? The idea of insulin is a tool. The health action plan that we did is a tool. The domains of health is a tool. Those allow you to implement the things that we have learned in the education, educate, empower, and then we encourage. We encourage with this amazing community that you are a part of. We're excited for this community. Community allows you to lean on each other. It allows you to grow, for you to understand how people think, to see that it's not just me. Your successes are the answer to a question somebody else is asking. Your journey, as rugged as it has been, as problematic as it has been, as start and stopping as it has been, is actually the answer for another community member's question. So when you're here, you bring value to this area. You bring value to the community. And I love that. So we educate, we empower, and we encourage as we move through our space. So DwayneWoodMD.com. DwayneWoodMD.com is our website, and there are some things that we all need to begin implementing in our lives to be consistent. Motivation is great, but it is the structure, it is the plan that sustains us. And DwayneWoodMD.com, you can go there, sign up for our Wood Life Design Brief. It is an email that you get on a weekly basis that helps you to implement some strategies and some doable, practical things to be healthy. DwayneWoodMD.com, it's right there on the website, or DwayneWoodMD.com/brief. That would be a great way to get there and sign up for that. You'll start getting that from us. And as we get into the rest of the week, we'll be start doing our fast tomorrow, and on Wednesday and then on Thursday. And we will have video from the vault Saturday night, 9 p.m., This Week in Review, Sunday morning at 6 a.m. as we recap what's been happening this week. And then we'll be right back here on Monday for Dwayne Wood MD Live at 7 p.m. Central. As I always say, glad to be here with you. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted. You don't need superhuman strength. What you need is a strategy you can trust, a plan you can follow, and the support and the determination to show up every single time for those people and those events that are so important. Thank you for being here. Good night, everybody. For our community members, we'll have that link in the community area in just a minute. We'll see you after the show. Good night, everybody.